Hey everybody, George Ruggiero here. Sorry about the bit of a audio quality issue at the beginning of this episode. We had a bit of a technical difficulty with the microphone and the board at the beginning of this episode. Luckily, it clears up midway through. I'd like to thank everybody for tuning in here on YouTube, our newer platform, and we will be coming back, hopefully, in the next couple weeks on 92.1 FM Rebel Radio.
Good evening, everybody. This weekend.
Years I've been in school, I'm a senior now. We've only taken away the home game. That was a crushing loss in the 2016 season, burning Shea Patterson's red shirt to play in one of those games and try to reach bowl eligibility. And then just last year in Nashville, A.J. Brown caught that ball, and that's all I've got to say about that.
AJ caught that ball.
But
I was at that game. I was in Nashville. It was freezing. I was miserable, but AJ caught that ball.
And you know what? I'm sure you and the other 16 people in the stadium felt the exact same way.
Yeah, it was not a great time.
But
except for the Vandy fans.
This year, I think, is a slightly worse Ole Miss team than in the past few, but a significantly worse Vandy team, and one that's showing holes and showing issues that I really think Ole Miss will be able to take full advantage of. They're in a real bad spot right now. They could be looking down an 0-8 SEC record this year, and this game's one of very minimal chances for Vanderbilt to pick up a single win in conference.
I mean, that's the thing. I just don't think that they take that win here in Oxford, especially with the way that they've been playing. I mean, it's their defense. Their defense is just awful. I mean,
It's borderline non-existent.
exactly. They're letting up almost 500 yards per game, and they have played good teams. They've already had a matchup against Georgia, and they've already had a matchup against LSU. But they gave up 42 points to Purdue. And that's not like it's like another team from, Louisiana. It's not like it's Tulane or something like that.
I would have been much more worried looking at this team after the prior to the Alabama game, or looking at this Ole Miss team, because I was worried about the offense. There's a bad defense is very easy to take advantage of in the SEC, but if Ole Miss was going out there and looking anemic, then I wouldn't think we'd put any points on the board, and I think all they'd need to do is get lucky a couple times to take it away. But after seeing us put up 31 points on a very solid Alabama team, I think we're going to score a lot of points. I think they're going to score fewer points. I'm taking Ole Miss to win, but I wouldn't put it past Vandy to cover, maybe with a late touchdown.
Maybe a backdoor cover.
And that's a
Keep in mind, it's a
that's
seven. It's
Ole
a
Miss
7
favored by
point spread.
7 at home.
Yeah, it's a 7-point spread. It shouldn't actually be too hot that day. Come tomorrow, it was beautiful today. I mean, I'm ready for this fall. I'm ready. It's been too hot. It's October. It doesn't need to be 95 degrees out.
And as far as Vanderbilt goes, their defense is they're just they're absolutely abysmal. They are
It's bad. It's
129th
Lord.
out of 130 football teams in
Oh,
stopping
wow.
teams on the ground. They're successful on 55.5% of every run against Vanderbilt. And if you don't know, the way that's defined is more than half the yards to gain, and on first down, and bring it up to within, I want to say, 2 or 3.
It's
Second
something like
down?
that. Are those real numbers?
That's a
Like,
real number.
Oh
That is
my
their
God.
S&P rushing success rate as a defense.
That is horrendous.
And,
I mean, and think about it like this too. Just the way that Ole Miss has had their offense functioning in the last couple of games. I mean, it's essentially been on the ground the entire time, between Jerry and Ely breaking out, between Scotty Phillips being probably one of the better running backs in the SEC, and then we have two quarterbacks, the two that are likely going to get most of the play time, are very dynamic on the ground.
And even though our guys have had some trouble airing it out, and I don't personally expect to see a complete game from Matt Corral. I think we'll see some interesting packages come up. That's where I'm at, but we'll get a little bit into the Ole Miss quarterback situation in a bit. But I just want to talk a little more on these S&P rankings for Vanderbilt, because I think I haven't watched too much Vanderbilt this year, but I think they're incredibly illuminating in just how bad this team is so far, or at least how they're looking against some very good to be fair, opponents.
Yeah.
129th in rushing success rate allowed.
And that's on
And
their defense, correct?
That's their defense.
Okay.
So opposing teams run very well against them.
Yep.
In passing success rate, significantly better. This is their highest defensive ranking. George, would you like to take a guess what that is out of 130 FBS?
Out of
teams?
130, they're
And it is their highest
their highest.
their highest defensive rating.
I mean,
from S&P.
I saw their just overall numbers, and they do give up a fair fewer amount of passing yards per game. You know, percentage-wise, of course, teams are just more like it's easier to pick up passing yards than it is rushing yards. So just based on that, I'm going to set it at maybe 100.
116th.
Wow,
Better than
Wow.
14 teams.
Oh wow, that's still awful. I
And
mean, it's
Just
is this historically bad for an SEC team?
It very well may be. It very well may be. But I think typically you see a lot of those numbers, and it's early in the season. We've got a very
course,
small
of
sample
course.
size. So this is a Vanderbilt team going against Georgia and going against LSU.
And we have to keep in mind a little bit with
And
those two
all
those two
Power
teams.
5 schools.
Yes. Well, is NIU Power 5?
NIU is not, but of the three.
Okay, of the first 3 games, of their 3 losses, excuse me, they played and lost against Georgia, LSU, and Purdue, and their one win on the season is against NIU.
So just running through, I don't want to harp on these too much because I think
No.
the point's been made with where the
It's-
numbers are at. But 126th in passing efficiency allowed, 125th nationally inside the 10, which means they are not putting. If you
That's
can
a-
get down there, and I think Nicholas Carr of Red Cup Rebellion put it best. If you can get down inside the 10, they will escort you into the end zone.
That's pretty much what that means. I mean, the way that I think of that, like just as a visualization in my mind, is essentially the Vanderbilt. Once you hit the 10-yard line, the Vanderbilt defense pretty much just parting like the Red Sea, letting any running back just tiptoe across into the end zone for a 6.
And last but definitely least, in big plays, which the Ole Miss offense has relied on a bit so far,
Yeah.
dead last, 130th.
Dead
in
last,
big
wow.
Teams gain 20 or more yards on 15% of all plays against this Vanderbilt defense.
And that's the thing, like, Ole Miss has played against teams, the last 2 games, Ole Miss has played against teams that are very good against the big play. Cal was one of those teams. Cal is one of the teams in the nation that is best against stopping big chunk yardage plays like that. Same with Bama.
You don't get past the second line in games like that.
Whereas I think with this game, it'll just be too easy almost for them.
Well, I think once you break through the defensive line, you make one decent move on a linebacker, or you get
Or a
a
back.
step or two on a cornerback, and you've got a 15% chance at putting
up at
heck
least-
of a lot
but
of
the thing is-
yards on this team.
And you have to look at that stat, and it's like in itself, it's 20 or more yards. They
That's
count as a
big.
big play.
That's not first
a-
down.
That's literally a fifth of the field. The thing is, you usually start on your own, say, 20, 25, 30-yard line. That's not something that, is something
And-
marginal or something easy to really, recover from
And-
if you're giving up huge chunk yardages like that.
And if you extrapolate it out, if that means if you get one first down, then statistically on one of your 6 plays, you've got about an 85% chance of one of them going for at least 20. That's a field position flipper on every other first down you get.
Yeah, that's just ridiculous. I mean, Ole Miss is going to have a lot of fun, I think, with that on the offensive side of the ball. But thing is now that'll come down to the quarterbacks
Yeah.
and which quarterback plays. And I really think Ole Miss's offense is going to be interesting to see this game because Matt Corral is healthy to play. But after playing against Bama the way he did, what do we do with John Rice Plumlee? I didn't want to say, 2 weeks ago when Corral got hurt, I was not about to say that there's a quarterback controversy after those last couple plays.
No, it's your back up playing because your first stringer got hurt.
And then he steps in against Alabama, and he played well.
He
had
played
a
very well.
very, very good game. Do I think he could have been better, in the air? Certainly.
Absolutely.
But he was so dynamic with his legs, and he was such a smart runner because he knows he's a quarterback, so he's marginally protected. But once he breaks that pocket and starts to run downfield with his head down, he
That's
can
when
get
you
blown
see-
up. He can get blown up just like any other runner.
Yeah, I think he's going to learn that awfully quick. But, I think he learned a decent bit from that Alabama game. But, I mean, even when, after Corral got hurt, we refused to mention the notion of there being a quarterback controversy at Ole Miss because we thought, all right, that's your backup playing because your first stringer's hurt. Corral will be back. We'll see what this freshman has to offer, but I can't imagine it's much against Alabama. But I think we've been proven wrong to a degree so far. There's something going on in that quarterback room that's a little more than we need to wait on Matt Corral to heal.
And that's the thing. I'm just not sure what else you can expect out of these quarterbacks, especially with the two that they've chosen to roll with. That being Corral and Plumlee.
Now, would you expect, because this is something that I've seen brought up on message boards and people have mentioned to me, but could you see maybe Matt Corral continuing as the starter? And I don't want to say, let's not act like Corral is a junior headed off to the draft or a senior, because he isn't. The guy's a sophomore. He started his first game in Memphis this year. I think the team sees the way forward with him, but I think the promise that John Rhys Plumlee has shown, could you see them bringing him in almost a Taysom Hill kind of role?
I would love to see that, just because Taysom Hill is one of the most, in my opinion, one of the most interesting cases in the NFL, simply because he's just a Swiss Army knife. He can realistically do anything out there. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Sean Payton with the Saints decides to play him at defense now and again. He's great with his legs. He's extremely quick. He's shifty. He obviously doesn't shy away from any contact. The only thing with that is at that point, are you giving up on them being able to throw the ball effectively? Because with Taysom Hill, I don't see him as an effective ball thrower.
No, and I'm yet to see John Rhys Plumlee as one either. Didn't look great through the air. He showed a lot of promise, and it's exciting when you see a freshman quarterback, a kid you haven't seen a lot on. It's really exciting when they can break one off or run a QB draw to score against Alabama on one of the first couple of drives. That's the kind of thing that gets people's attention, and that's what I think maybe giving some Ole Miss fans a little bit of tunnel vision on this kid, because he hasn't shown to be an exceptional quarterback. But so far he's looked like a good guy to have under center in some capacity. I think his throws need to get there, but I think Matt Corral's throws need to get there too.
That's the thing. I will not exempt Matt Corral from that same criticism. Matt Corral needs to throw the ball better. Simple as that. Thing is that this is a Rich Rodriguez offense, so you have to expect them to run a lot and run with the quarterback a lot. Based on that, I really do think that they are wasting another talent they have. Sure, it's the same argument with John Rhys Plumlee after the Cal game is my argument with Grant Tisdale. But the thing is, there was something, a different element of the game that we saw at Tisdale that we didn't see out of Plumlee, or we see currently out of Plumlee or Corral. He seems to be more of a pocket passer. Sure, we saw him scamper down the sideline for a good couple yards there to escape a tackle or two, but that obviously wasn't the biggest aspect of his game that he likes to use.
And I don't think that's something that Ole Miss fans have seen too much of in recent years.
No.
I mean,
going
gunslinger
back after gunslinger, in my opinion.
Going back to Bo Wallace, with the exception of the, albeit brief, Shea Patterson era, these guys are mobile quarterbacks, every last one of them, except Pellerin, but he's a tight end.
Yeah.
Beyond that, I'd say, George, I'd love to hear your keys to the game. Mine are going to be both based on the Vanderbilt offense, because I think what it's going to come down to, I mean, they've got a fantastic running back in, what's his name, Keyshawn Vaughn.
Yeah, Vaughn is great.
He's averaging 8 yards a carry.
He's that's the thing. He's awesome.
He has half of their touchdowns this year.
Yeah, that's the other part of it, though, is that you can't rely on your running back that much, because then teams will learn from that and then take that aspect of your game away. And
there is one other player on the team outside of Keyshawn Vaughn with more than 4 carries.
Oh, my God.
It is a one-dimensional rushing attack, but it's a rushing attack that works. So I think holding him will be critical. The statistic that I think will outweigh this, especially if Vanderbilt's playing from behind, which, frankly, I expect them to be. This is a high-powered Ole Miss team, and I expect them to be winning early. Whether or not they blow that remains to be seen. I don't think they will, but I wouldn't be altogether too surprised if it happened. But the statistic that I think it'll come down to is, can Keshawn Vaughn overcome this? Vanderbilt quarterback play, throwing the ball 20 or more yards downfield, 14% completion percentage.
14? 14.
He has tried 14 passes of 20 yards or more.
Oh, man.
He has completed 2 with 3 interceptions.
Oh, no. I mean,
just for reference, and these are deep passes, so you shouldn't be blown away by these quarterback numbers, but for reference, the slew of Rebel quarterbacks, 9 for 26 with 2 touchdowns and 1 interception.
I mean,
That's 5 times as many yards on less than
oh, God.
twice as many attempts.
Is this game going to be worse than we expect? Like, is Vandy actually worse than a team like Arkansas, which going in, we thought Arkansas was the worst. But, I mean, look at the way that Arkansas played against Texas A&M last weekend.
Yeah,
They gave them a game.
I try not to underestimate Vandy because I've written them off every year, and
They always burn us.
I'm very often disappointed in the result. They're just one of those teams, and this has been a thorn in Ole Miss's side in recent years. And getting those easy wins, trying to get to that number 6. I know the past couple of years it didn't matter, but we still want the wins. But you want to be able to win those easy in-conference games. Vanderbilt is a cakewalk of an SEC East locked opponent. Tennessee is the other that the SEC West has, where it's like, hey, that's an easy conference win for us every year.
Should be. Keep
Should
in
be.
mind, Should be.
There just happen to be some teams that have each other's number. For a while, Ole Miss had Alabama's number in football.
2 years.
In the same, well, I'd say we had their number in 2016 as well. I
Yeah,
think we played up to and beyond their level. We regressed towards the end. I still think that Bama team was better than the Ole Miss team, but I think we had no business being up by that much.
No,
Not
at all.
Even though we wound up losing the game. But things like that happen. Worst teams just have somebody's number. And that's happened with Arkansas, and it's happened with Vanderbilt in the past few years, where those teams either play us close or beat us when they shouldn't. So I'm very hesitant to say Vanderbilt's going to be the worst team that Ole Miss plays this year, just because, like, you can take an immense amount from statistics, but things like S&P, the one thing they can't account for is who you're playing.
Yeah,
It's pure numbers and it's pure math, which I'm a STEM-minded kind of guy, so I put a lot of value in that. But you
got to mention the eye test.
You gotta watch the eye test, and I haven't watched enough Vanderbilt football this year because I respect myself to some degree to know, is this team passing the eye test? Are they getting outplayed by better teams, or are they just a bad team?
I mean, that's the thing. I did a little bit of film work before this, just because, like you said, I like the numbers. I like to follow the numbers because, they're just a simple, demonstration of what's actually happening on the field. But you can't go without watching it. And I have to say, Vandy's they're just not very good, except for Vaughn. Their running back, he's awesome. He's awesome to watch. He's very physical back. He has no fear going down the middle, but at the same time, he's got the moves and the speed to really break the edge. And I've got to agree with you. I think he'll be the key to the game for Vanderbilt, but the key to winning the game, I think, has to be,
Make sure you can keep running the ball in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, but I have to go with Vandy's defense. Because that's the thing. We've seen Ole Miss's offense be shut down before, just because their quarterbacks couldn't get the ball out of their hand quickly enough.
And it's not against exceptional defense.
No, that's the thing. I mean, just look at SELA. Southeast Louisiana. They're not a Power 5 team. We expected that to be
They're not
cakewalk.
They're not even a good non-P5 team.
No, they're not. They're not a good team. But thing is, they took away an aspect of Ole Miss's game and forced them to beat them another way, and Ole Miss almost couldn't do it. Now, the defense was also a bit of an issue with that game, Ole Miss's, that is, but I don't think that'll be the case this game, so I'm not going to put as much stock into putting this game on Ole Miss's defense.
Because, frankly, the Vanderbilt defense, they don't need to be world beaters.
No.
They barely even need to be good. They just need to show flashes of competence and hope Ole Miss incompletes enough passes to keep points off the board.
Exactly. It's not a question, of what they can't do. It's more of a question of what they can and will do. I don't want to say I'm worried because it's Vandy, but I'm worried because it's Vandy.
I couldn't
You
have
know
said
what
it
I
better
mean?
myself. So we're going to take a quick break after this Ole Miss Vanderbilt discussion. Real quick, George, who you got? Ole Miss favored by 7 at home.
Favored by 7 at home. I've got to stick with them. They played well last week. I think Ole Miss wins and covers. I just think that Vandy defense is just too bad. I think Ole Miss jumps on them early and keeps the Commodores at reach.
So I'm partially with you. I think Ole Miss wins, but I think Vandy's going to keep it close enough to cover just because I've watched a lot of Ole Miss these past few years. So we're going to take a quick break, but we'll be right back to you in a few minutes with college football preview, Thursday night football recap, and some MLB.
Welcome back, everybody, to the G and Finn Show here on 92.1 Rebel Radio. We're just going to hop back into it. We've got a couple interesting games from last night with college football. We saw South Alabama beat Georgia Southern in double overtime. I mean, that's just interesting because you don't see many overtime or even double overtime games in football.
I mean, it's always fun to see, especially when you got something going on a Thursday night. Actually, the power went out at one point. Someone said, "Who needs Pac-12 after dark? We've got AAC in the dark." And I mean, we had it a couple weeks ago where the NFL Thursday night game should have been immediately turned off in favor of the Tulane game. But
Yeah, that
I
Tulane
think
game was awesome.
as fun as a double overtime on a weeknight is, that Thursday night game, Seahawks Rams, that was
Cool.
something fun to watch. And boy, did I see the 12th man there.
Yeah, I mean, it was just an incredible game to watch. It was just back and forth the entire time, came down to the wire. It was just an awesome game.
And I'm an AFC fan. I've got no skin in the game other than I didn't want to be doing my lab report. But the game was close all game. LA took a lead in third. They came into the third, I believe, they were up 26-21. But Seattle tacked on 9 points. LA tacked on another field goal. Seattle tried 2-point with our boy DK, who had a 40-yard reception and touchdown.
Great game for him, by the way. He just had an awesome game. Great game.
3 targets, other than the 2-point. 3 targets, 2 catches, 60 yards and a touchdown. Not too bad for our large Terminator son, straight out of Mississippi. But what it really came down to, Seattle tried to make sure they were up by 3. They went for 2. DK did have a drop there, which was upsetting to see on that 2-point. It wound up not mattering as Greg the Leg missed a 44-yard attempt as time expired.
I mean, I think I've got one major takeaway from this game that I think needs to be stressed a little bit more two, excuse me. It's about these 2 quarterbacks. Russell Wilson is probably one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL. I mean, at this point, if he hasn't proven himself an MVP candidate, I think this is his year to do so.
And, I think he's been immensely underrated, and this might bother some people, but I think if Malcolm Butler doesn't jump that route in the Super Bowl, we'd be talking about Russell Wilson the way people talk about Aaron Rodgers. I think he's an exceptional quarterback, and I think he's one of the best playing right now.
On the flip side, my other main takeaway from this game is Jared Goff, like, what is he doing? What is Jared Goff doing at this point? Because I think Sean McVay is a fantastic coach and a fantastic mind, just based on the way you look at the rest of that offense. But what is Jared Goff doing back there?
I'm guilty of this because I don't watch a ton of Rams games. I don't watch a ton of Seahawks games, but I'm an AFC fan. It's rare that my team ever plays them, and for a while it was rare for them to be games worth watching. But I just kind of assumed, since he was the quarterback of a team that went to the Super Bowl, that he was good at football.
No.
Now that I'm seeing a little more Jared Goff, I don't know if that guy's good at football.
You know what he's looked like to me, especially because he went to the Super Bowl, and this is keep in mind, a Super Bowl winning quarterback that I'm going to compare him to. You know who he looks like to me? He looks like Trent Dilfer.
Super Bowl champion Trent
Super
Dilfer.
Bowl champion Trent Dilfer. He looks like Trent Dilfer. He just doesn't have the rest of the talent around him that Trent Dilfer did when he won a Super Bowl.
And it looked like he did have that talent for a while, but, I mean, I think Gurley, the limited options they're seeing out of him, it took him until the 4th possession of the game, week 1, for Gurley to even get to touch the ball.
Yeah.
I think that's illuminating in how, I don't want to say one-dimensional, but how limited Gurley's production has been. And I don't think the benefits of a pass-catching guy out of the backfield I don't think the benefits of that can be overstated. It's guys like Christian McCaffrey. It's all your fantasy
CMC,
guys.
I mean,
It's guys like
CMC,
Barkley,
Bell.
CMC, Kamara, Bell, and for a while,
Todd Gurley.
and he's just not looking like that. And I think that's taken so much away from that offense.
But the thing is for me with Gurley, he had a good game. Well, excuse me, he had an all right game last night. Only went for 51 yards on 15 carries, but he scored 2 touchdowns. Which is, I mean, that's an awesome stat line when it comes to getting your team to a place where they'll be able to win the game.
And surprisingly good goal line back for
Yes.
the type of runner that he typically is. He's a patient guy. I'd say he edges a little more towards the elusive side of things than you'd think from a guy his size.
Yeah,
At least as
I'd
far as
agree.
his style goes. But he's always been a good goal line back, and it's real good for the Rams to have that option once they get down inside the 10-15. But maybe my last takeaway is I don't think the Rams' defense is
No.
what everyone thought it would be. Fantasy is by no means everything, but it was on average the first defense taken in Yahoo leagues. In ESPN, I think it was Chicago, which is a surprising difference. I'm not sure what's different in their scoring, but number one defense. They have minimal takeaways. They're letting up a lot of points, and they're letting up stupid points, things that a competent defense should be able to stop. They're
like
not
a
getting
40-yard go route.
They're not getting outplayed. They're just losing the game for themselves.
It's just something else, especially after you see a team like that, the roster construction is primarily the same as when they went to the Super Bowl. And what's so interesting about that is now they are not good, to the point to where they lose 55 points to the Bucks, to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, led by Jameis Winston, of all people. A man who is probably more known for stealing crab legs from a Publix than being an NFL quarterback.
He has improved to one game closer to 500 since the EW speech. However, he also put 55 points up on the number one picked fantasy defense. So, how much do we know about him? I think all we know is the Los Angeles Rams defense is not where we thought it would be. But, George, I agree with you. I think the things we can take away from this game, Wilson, good. Rams D, bad. Gurley, knee hurt. And
Goff,
Jared
good.
Goff should probably go back and play some more
Probably.
in college.
Yeah.
That's just one game, and we've got a lot more to talk about. I think we're going to briefly run through what we've got going on in college football, briefly what we got going on in the NFL. But what we really want to talk about to you tonight is MLB, beginning of the postseason. It's October.
Real playoffs now.
It's still approximately 600 degrees Celsius out, but you know what? It's October wherever they're playing. So
It's
I think
probably a lot cooler where they're playing than
so.
here.
College football slate we got coming up real quick. My 2 games to watch are Iowa, Michigan,
Yep.
and
Agree.
Auburn, Florida.
Yep.
I mean, we've got one other ranked matchup, but that's number 25, Michigan State, traveling. I believe they're traveling to Columbus this year to play Ohio State.
I'll take a quick look on whether that's in East Lansing or if that's in Ohio.
But
that game is in Columbus. So
all right, in Columbus.
It
So
doesn't matter anymore.
Iowa will travel to the Big House to take on Michigan, a team they overranked by 5 points or by 5 spots. Number 7, Auburn will be playing in Gainesville against their locked out of conference or out of division rivalry, Florida.
Yep.
I think that's going to be some fun SEC football.
I think that'll be the best game this weekend, honestly.
And I think Iowa is going to get Jim Harbaugh
Fired.
on the hot seat.
I think it'll
If
get
he
him
isn't
fired.
already. I've maintained that I think Jim Harbaugh is a bit overrated.
Yep.
I think just because he's at a blue blood program, he gets a lot of credit for being that coach that he hasn't earned while being their head coach. But at the same time, he's brought the program to a state where they weren't getting consistent 9-win seasons before him. I mean, of course they were in the past, but not immediately before the Jim Harbaugh era there. I think he's a good coach, but I don't think he's keeping Michigan at the level that Michigan fans expect. Is that conceited of them? Yeah, they went to Michigan. Of course
Yeah,
it is.
of course it is.
But I think loss to Iowa, even
I
though
think that'll-
it's a very good Iowa team.
It's a great Iowa
It's
team.
an Iowa team that's
Very
ranked
impressed.
over Michigan, and for good reason. But they're not going to like losing to Iowa.
I mean, yeah, I'm with you on that one. I think Iowa is the nail in the coffin for this Michigan team as a way to just expose them and kind of put the postseason and put everything, put Harbaugh and Shea Patterson, put that link, put all that out of reach, put that, that last nail in the coffin, really put it away, and make people look in the mirror and say, what are we even doing?
Yeah, I think you're spot on, and at least where I'm coming from, my roommates in Michigan, let's go Hawkeyes.
Yes.
Now, who you got? Some SEC action down in Gainesville.
That's a tough matchup for me because Gainesville's always a tough place to play. Auburn's been very good this year. I'll give them all that credit. Auburn's been fantastic. Bo Nix has impressed me greatly, especially for a true freshman. What's interesting though is that Auburn's favored by 2.5
I didn't expect
on the
that.
road. I would never have expected that.
Yeah, I think I've got man, I don't see anything on Florida that I think could be that game-changing just element against Auburn. I wouldn't say I'm comfortable even making a pick on this one.
Neither am I.
I think it's going to be
Especially-
close. I think it's going to be good football. I think it's going to be good television tomorrow at 2:30.
Yeah.
But if I was Florida, I'd be a little worried because I'm seeing that Jordan Hare magic that Auburn always has, and I'm seeing it on the road.
Yeah, it's what's tough for me about picking this game is the fact that Florida doesn't have their starting quarterback. That Franks is hurt.
Yeah, that could very well be the difference.
I think it will be the difference in that game. The fact that they'll have a more inexperienced quarterback or quarterback that doesn't have the same skill set as Franks.
And those kind of things make a difference. Brief rundown through the NFL.
I don't see many great games this weekend.
I
really
don't see too much either. Watch your team's game. Do
Have
your
a good
homework or
weekend.
do some yard work, depending where you're at in your life. One that I think could be fun is Colts Chiefs.
Yeah, that'll be good. I think that'll be a good game. The Colts, I think, are a little bit underrated. I think Brissett has stepped up to the plate extremely well. And the Chiefs' defense just isn't very good, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But at the same time, Mahomes is, well, Patrick Mahomes. I don't think there's much else to say about him.
Yeah, he hasn't played exactly to MVP level yet, but I see no reason to think he's regressed. I think he's just taking a minute to warm up and get that hot hand. I think the only games I'd really watch,
Green Bay and Dallas should be good.
Green Bay Dallas could actually be a great game. What I'm planning on watching, and this would have been foreign to say a year ago, but Bills Titans could be a fun matchup.
I think that'll be a great game.
Those are two 3-1 teams.
For me, the kicker with that game is Josh Allen, whether he plays or not.
Yeah, that's going to make a difference. He's in concussion protocol, practiced with a non-contact jersey on today, but
If he gets in the game, I think Buffalo wins it.
You know what? It's going to be a lot of fun at Nissan Stadium up in Nashville. And beyond that, if you really care about the AFC North, which has been a fun division to watch lately, Ravens travel to Pittsburgh to play the Steelers. I don't think that's going to be that fun,
No,
unless you're a Ravens fan.
even then, I'm not sure it'll be that fun of a game to watch, really. No. I think it'll just be the Ravens are a very ground and pound offense.
Yeah.
It's never a lot of fun necessarily to watch, and I think it'll be even less fun against Pittsburgh.
That's the only reason that Week 1 was so exciting is because you don't expect
out.
that, but you don't expect that from the Ravens.
Of all
they
teams.
completed passes to wide receivers, like not tight ends.
Yeah.
That's incredible. Only other thing of note that has a possibility of happening in the NFL is Jets play the Eagles. They have never defeated them in franchise history.
Never?
0-9.
Wow.
So that could happen, but they just announced Darnold will be out, so I wouldn't expect too much.
No, I
Maybe
don't
if it's
either.
on upset alert, it could be cool to see a franchise's first win against another. But what I'm excited about, and probably some of the best games with the exception of Rams-Seahawks that I watched this week, postseason baseball is back.
Postseason baseball. Playoff. It's real playoffs now, starting yesterday night. The divisional series started, and the wild cards ended on Wednesday with the Tampa Bay Rays defeating the Oakland A's 5-1 at home. For Oakland. Whereas the Washington Nationals pulled one out after Juan Soto really just gave it to them in that last inning. Sure, he got out on that play, but that's just a game changer.
That was a
He's
baller
young
move,
game changer.
and I can't recommend the John Boy breakdown enough.
No.
I think Brewers Nationals is a very fun wild card game, and that energy is amped up in a wild card game. It's a series based sport. All of a sudden, it all comes down to this.
One game.
That's very exciting, and I'm lucky I'm not a fan of those teams because I would have had a heart attack. But hey, if you're a cardiologist in the greater Washington or the greater Oakland area, hey, send some money my way. I could really use it.
Or, after last night, the greater Atlanta area.
Oh yeah, that was a
woo.
so
that was
if
a
you
game right
if you
there.
didn't watch, in the game was in Atlanta.
Yep.
Braves led the Cardinals 6-3 in the top of the 8th with 2 outs, or with 1 out rather.
1 out. Yep.
Cardinals rack up a few
Roared
runs,
back.
and they came up 7-6 in 2 innings. They scored, or I'm sorry, it was 6-. What was the comeback? I believe it was three runs in the 8th and 3 in the 9th.
I'll pull it back up, but
But
it was
went-
just an incredible comeback.
It
The
was
thing is, you thought
6-1,
St. Louis-
then 6-4, and then 7-6. And Cardinals came out of Atlanta with a victory. They fell to the Braves 3-0 today.
So I mean,
and
that
then-
series is tied up 1-1 going back to St.
Yeah.
Louis. But what's really interesting about that series and the way that it's transpired is the fact that neither of these teams are well known or well regarded for their pitching. And that's the thing.
I think
Today-
those two teams had no faith in their bullpen come the 8th inning.
No, neither would I. And thing is,
And for good reason.
for good reason, exactly. And thing is, St. Louis realistically burned probably their best pitcher, Jack Flaherty, today in a 3-0
loss.
In a loss.
And only let up 3, which that's acceptable.
It is.
It's not exactly what you want out of your guy, but
No, I'm not
but
sure
you
it was
can't
even-
complain too much. And in today's MLB, you got to be putting some points on the board.
And that's the thing. It was only 1 run. It was only 1 run. It was just a Donaldson single with Ozzie Albies on base, and Albies is probably one of the quicker guys in the MLB. But that was the only run that was given up by Flaherty.
And in a less interesting game, Astros took down the Rays 6-2 today. Houston now leads that 5-game series 1-0.
I was disappointed, but it really wasn't anything that I was necessarily too surprised by.
And,
it happened.
At the moment, I believe the game began about 20 to 25 minutes ago.
Yep.
Twins up 1-0 on the Yankees in the bottom of the 2nd inning in New York. I'd just like to point out I am 2 for 2 on picks so far.
Yeah, I think I'm.
I mean, it's
1
just
for
the
1.
wild card games, but
Yeah, just
also
the
it's
wild
not
card
like the
games.
Astros and the Dodgers are going to lose these series. I'm going to come to regret that next week, aren't I?
Now that you say that, I mean, you've jinxed it now. You've said it. You've put that out into the world. The Rays are moving on.
Ladies and
I'm
gentlemen,
not confident.
call
in
your
that.
bookie immediately before I have time to regret what I just said.
I'm not confident about that. I really do think Houston is just such a stacked team. They're just way too good. Their lineup is just top to bottom so much better. They just put so many more runs on the board. I mean, this game was 6-2 in terms of 6-2 just in terms of the score. But their pitching staff, Verlander, just went the length, went 7, went the distance. No runs against. It was some late runs. They were essentially garbage time runs for Tampa to bring that 6-2. The other game right now that's going on is New York and Minnesota. It's 1-0. We'll take a look at how that run was scored. It's James Paxton and Jose Barrios. Surprisingly, it might have been an error. No, excuse me. It was a home run. Of course, no surprise there. Minnesota, Jose Polanco scoring a home run off of Paxton. Not much else going on. Washington and LA had their first game on Thursday. Walker Buehler is their new ace, which is incredible to say for a team that has a talent like Clayton Kershaw. That Walker Buehler is now their ace. Walker Buehler, they won that game 6-0. Buehler went 6, no earned runs against, 3 walks, which that is a little bit concerning, the walks, but he had 8 strikeouts to go with that. That's just, that's what you need out of your pitcher when it comes to playoff times. So, I mean, I really think that buries the Nationals. I don't think they come back from that at all. I'm not even certain they win a game. We'll see who they're the next starting game, which that is tonight at 8:37 Central Time on TBS. That's Steven Strasburg and Clayton Kershaw pitching. I just think Kershaw shuts it down. I think he locks it down. I don't see much coming out of that game. I don't see much coming out of the series for Washington. Other than that, we'll just see how the rest of these divisional series wrap up and continue. Like I said, Tampa after losing with Tyler Glasnow on the mound, I think that's it for him, or for the team, excuse me, unless we just see something completely change in Blake Snell. And, of course, they've got Charlie Morton starting Game 3. If Tampa can steal one in Minute Maid Park in Houston, the next game, which that game is tomorrow at 8 o'clock. That's going to be Blake Snell versus Garrett Cole. I don't think the Rays win that. Garrett Cole has been dominant this year. He leads the AL in strikeouts by a large margin. He leads the MLB in strikeouts in a large margin. Other than that, I think if Snell doesn't somehow have some sort of return to his AL Cy Young winning talent or just play level, I think Tampa's done for. Turns out, the Twins and New York might be a little bit more interesting than we expected if, that game, if that series just is home run after home run after home run. That's about it for us. I think that covers everything. Anything else going on? Hockey's back. Not much to talk about there. It's just 2 games in. Basketball is coming back in the next month and a half, too. Other than that, that is all I have for you guys tonight. Thank you so much for tuning in. This has been the G and Finn Show on 92.1 Rebel Radio.